So appreciate you all for joining today, and I'll pass it to Mohammed.
Thanks, Celine. And yeah, right now we're seeing a lot of concerning developments in Congress and in government. Right now, or a day or two ago, Congress, the United States Senate, actually voted to send a 90 plus billion-dollar weapon package to the House to potentially be voted on. This includes billions to Israel, Taiwan, and Ukraine, but notably, it continued to further Israeli atrocities. It doesn't hold Israel accountable, and it continues to block accountability for violations of U.S. and international law. Congress right now has been very hostile, as we know, towards Palestinians, including advocates, experts, and Palestinians on the ground. We're continuing to see these updates flood offices. It's essential that people on the call today call their members and continue to engage them. We've also seen the White House become susceptible to pressure. Right now, there are reports that the administration is monitoring potential violations of the Israeli government. While we know that those may not lead anywhere right now, we do know that that wouldn't have been possible without public pressure. For instance, right now, the Israeli government is blocking a shipment of flour that will be able to feed 1.5 million Palestinians in Gaza for a number of months. Uh, that is a violation of U.S. law for the Israeli government to be blocking that aid. So right now, a lot of advocacy is going towards ensuring that UNRWA is continuing to be funded and that the funding is not cut by the U.S. government any longer, that humanitarian aid is able to get to Palestinians, and that, ultimately ceasefire, ending the blockade and occupation are also key demands that we're having. But right now, the policy and political environment in Congress is very volatile. We know this, but still, we're continuing to push our issues and our perspective and ensuring that members and staff hear from us directly. We're also encouraging constituents to continue to be involved, whether that's through USCPR Action or 501c4 or through community organizing and community engagement. So right now, there's a lot we're looking at in Congress. We understand that the situation is very dire, but still, months after October, it's essential to keep pressuring public officials and offices to support Palestinians and to ensure that Palestinians are not dehumanized, but also Palestinians deserve support from their local elected officials. And I do want to take a note as well. We've seen the Israeli government target intentionally Palestinian Americans from places like New Orleans, Chicago, and other places while they are in the West Bank. Their members of Congress have ignored them and ignored their families, and we're hoping that also concerns are raised for people who are impacted in their community. So there's a lot we're looking at right now. We're happy that people are being engaged and are engaging in their offices. So I'm going to pass it back to Celine, but please feel free to ask any questions and happy to offer any insights that we have. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. And again, if anyone has any questions, you can ask them in the chat about these updates. So we'll get into making some calls. What we're going to do is take 15 minutes or so to use the call tool and the script that we are offering to, again, make calls, send emails, send tweets to your elected representatives. And if you finish that during the time that we have, you can message your friends and your local organizations and your family to encourage them to do the same. So we're gonna link the call tool in the chat. This is also the links if you want to type them in, if you want to use the QR code. These links will direct you to the tools that we're using. So once you get into the link, you will fill out your information. Once you fill out your personal information, it'll direct you to, so this is what the page is going to look like. It directs you to your elected representative, their phone number, their email, and you can use the script to make the call. We also have an email script. You can feel free to personalize it to add points that you'd like to add. But again, they cover the demands that we outlined earlier. And so we have a call tool, an email tool. Again, you just fill out your personal information and you'll be directed to the person you're supposed to call. And we also have a Twitter tool, so you can send tweets. Again, feel free to personalize these things. You can send tweets to demand funding for UNRWA, permanent ceasefire. So again, we're linking all of these materials in the chat. We'll link them repeatedly. We'll have the QR code up and the links that you can type in. And we have the script in the tool, and we can also screen share the script as well, if that's helpful to use. So basically, yeah, um, we'll take 15 minutes to do so. And we will do our best to answer questions in the chat as y'all do this. And we'll come back, yeah, in about 15 minutes. And we're not going to be playing music because we want everyone to just be able to focus on making the calls and sending the emails. But again, if you have any questions, you can send them in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them during the call time. So yeah, please feel free to use this and let us know. Also, let us know if you get through to staffers, let us know how it goes. And then if you are able to make all your calls and your emails, you can also send the links and the resources to your friends and family or anyone else who you can ask to make the calls as well. Just to reiterate, once you type in and get onto the pages like the call tools and email tools, the script will be there. And we can also share the script on the screen as well. Um, Thanks everyone for updating in the chat as y'all are going. Again, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A section. Put them in the Q&A feature in Zoom instead of the chat. It's just easier for us to track and respond to questions that way. Otherwise, you can feel free to update us in the chat on how your calls and emails are going. Thanks for making the calls and emails and sending the tweets, everyone. Again, we're trying to respond to the questions, but keep us updated if you get through to anyone, and we'll come back in about like 7 minutes or so. Thanks for sharing your updates, y'all. I'm seeing for some, it's like the first time they've gotten through to a staffer. Multiple people have been able to speak with staffers. Let's continue to send emails, send tweets, make calls for a couple more minutes, and we'll come back for the Skillshare. All right, let's get ready to come back in about a minute or two. For anyone who's just joining, you can use the links we've shared in the chat to call, send emails, and tweet at your elected representatives. All right, everyone, we're going to get ready to come back in about a minute. Just looking at the messages and seeing that a lot of people have been able to send emails to get through to offices and are still continuing some calls. Again, if the call tool doesn't direct you right away, it will take a few minutes sometimes, but if it doesn't work, you can also call directly because the lines are busy. Let's get ready to come back in about a minute and we'll get started on this Skillshare. All right. Thank you everyone for making calls, for sending emails. What we're gonna do now is move into the bird dogging Skillshare, but again, we'll drop the links again in the chat and encourage you to continue to use them to send calls, emails, and tweets, and to use it after this power hour as well. Post your own power hour. And yeah, we're gonna get into just like a Skillshare to offer up some ways that folks can take action. And so the topic for today, and we'll maybe do this a couple times throughout the coming weeks on our power hours, is do different Skillshares on different tactics that you all can use to pressure your elected representatives. So this is a quick Skillshare on bird dogging, and we can go to the next slide. So the definition of bird dogging is basically to pursue with determination, to follow and act. And bird dogging is a strategy that is used by activists who repeatedly seek out specific elected officials, pin them down with specific questions, and get them to state their views. So the idea is to attend a political event like a town hall where you know an elected official is going to be at or a candidate is going to be at, and ask them specific questions. So right now we would be asking about questions relating to Palestine and to pin them to get them to say specific answers. So And like this is typically followed up by promoting like videos, potentially pushing for like a private meeting with the elected official and publicizing it to spread awareness. So to organize this, what you would typically do is identify an event, especially one that would already have a media presence, and get seats, and prepare a group that would get into the event. Be prepared to have everyone repeat clear, pointed questions on the topic that you're focused on, with the goal of exposing the politician or getting them to answer your questions, right? So if you're going to plan something like this and you've identified an event that you know a specific elected official is going to be at, you can bring people together, make a plan, and prepare questions in advance. So what you would ideally prepare before you go into this is, what are people saying? What questions are people asking? How are they saying it? Who is saying it and when? So for example, having people, you know, get seats all throughout the audience, some people up front, some people everywhere, you know, in the back, wherever, and go one after the other. And of course, like taking into account the need to be flexible in case things change. But the idea is, again, attend the event, arrive early to scope out the venue, spread out, don't sit together, have folks spread out throughout the audience so that you can have maximum impact. If you have a few people, it would be good to try to be up front because that's much harder to ignore. So ideally, you'd get good seats. And if you have a bigger group, sit everywhere, have people spread out everywhere, because that's also hard to ignore. And there's a recommendation is to ask your questions early on in the event and ask them often. It's good to repeat the questions or the types of questions. And you can bring signs, you know, and ask questions in a way that will draw attention. And make sure to take video so that you can share it on social media. Make sure you get press coverage. And what bird dogging helps to do is build support for the issues that you're raising. It builds pressure on elected officials. And it's important, like, as you're going through this event, to keep track of what's happening. So what's being said, is the elected official responding to your questions? You know, are you being escorted out? Like, film everything, keep track of what's happening, talk to press, and make your story public. So always seek out the press, don't wait for them, and try to go to multiple events, like where you know this person is going to be, follow them, ask your questions, and make it a problem, make it an issue, to build that pressure. So the goals, again, would typically be to force elected officials to respond to our issues, to get our issues covered by media and press, and to elevate the profiles of our own organizations, right? Getting people to know who we are and what we do, and inspire others to join. And in terms of what to avoid, try to make sure your questions are really pointed and very clear. Don't ask softball questions that would allow a politician to give answers that don't mean anything. Ask tough, specific questions that demand specific answers, because that's what will create tension, and tension creates pressure. So maybe we can, Kat, if you can share the video example that we have of a bird dogging action.
Just one moment here.
No worries, take your time.
Okay, thanks for hanging in with the technical difficulties. We're gonna have it here in a sec.
Senator Durbin, I'd love to speak with you as a constituent. I'm from Chicago, and I'm Leah, and I'm from a progressive Jewish family who lives in Chicago, and I just wanted to reach out because tens of thousands of people, including my parents, have marched in the street for a ceasefire. You might know that over 2/3 of voters, 4 in 5 Democrats, want the killing to stop, and you had been brave last week and spoken to it, but will you today again affirm that we should be calling for a ceasefire?
Ceasefire is a mutual agreement, and I support that.
That's great.
But I also want to tell you, we need to pause for food and medicine and the basics. You know as well as I do, just innocent, ordinary people are dying.
That's right. Children are dying because they don't have water.
Pause to provide the humanitarian aid. It's part of it.
That's right, but why push for a pause instead of a ceasefire? People would probably rather the killing stop forever than for 3 hours.
Ceasefire takes mutual agreement.
That's right, that's right. So why not push for negotiations?
Well, I certainly support negotiations.
Got you. So you do support a ceasefire?
Yes.
Do you
I'm
think-
for a ceasefire.
Yep.
Mutual agreement to end the hostilities, and it has to be prefaced by the release of the hostages. That I think would be show of good faith on both sides.
Yeah.
So I think that has to be part of it.
I hear you, and I know that, you know, the ceasefire will save the lives of everyone in Gaza right now, just to make it clear. But thank you for standing with the Palestinian people.
So basically the idea is to like really get a specific response and really put pressure on the elected official to respond. And if they're not giving the answers, obviously that we want, we expose that and continue to build pressure and escalate. So this was just one example of like how this tactic looks. But again, this can happen at like a public event where you're also in an audience and the elected representative is speaking and you ask the questions repeatedly there. And you can be also loud and use different types of tactics around that. So we can go through like the next. We have like a couple of other tactics that y'all can use in your local organizing. We can go to the next slide. The next one actually. Thank you, Kat. So next slide. Thank you. So we have some different types of actions that folks can take at political events. There's also disruptions. There have been really strong disruptions in Biden's campaign. I'm sure you all have heard of how at multiple events that Biden has been speaking at, he's been interrupted by people who are demanding that he call for or he pushed for a ceasefire. He's been interrupted by protesters that have been pushing these points on Palestine and against the Zionist genocide against the Palestinian people. So that's one example of types of tactics people can take up, and we can go to the next slide. Wake-up calls, noise demos at electeds' houses. House visits have been really effective as well. We've seen people organize actions to show up at elected officials' houses outside and do like noise demonstrations or wake-up calls and say that, the people stand with Palestine, you need to call for a ceasefire, you need to stop arming Israel. There have been actions at Blinken's house, at Pelosi's mansion, a funeral procession at Rep. Glenn Ivey's house. There are different creative actions that are, can be highly visible and highly publicized. And again, the goal is to build pressure on the elected official to take a position. You can go to the next slide. This is also a really cool example of an art build at Pelosi's mansion. And I think in the Bay Area they do a lot of these like street murals and street art. And maybe, I don't know if we're able to click on the video to show that, but this is one of the wake up call actions. Okay. Oh, we can go to the previous one. Sorry. That might be an image, so we can go to the next slide. And then again, like these are like noise demonstrations with art. This was like a camp out actually outside of Blinken's house, where they're calling him a war criminal. They're saying shame on you, and like this is when he's leaving his house. So the chants get really loud as soon as he leaves. And again, this is around noise demo and building pressure around the politician that we're targeting. And we can go to the next slide just to show an action that's happening, I think still right now. The Bay Area is shutting it down for Palestine at the Golden Gate Bridge. We can go to that link if possible on Instagram, but this is images from right now or earlier this morning calling for a stop arming Israel, for hands off Rafah. And if we're able to show the video, that would be amazing. But this is happening, I think, as we speak. It's still going. And okay, so here are some other, and yeah, y'all can look at on Instagram. PYM Bay Area has the video, including other organizations in the Bay Area who are currently at the Bay Bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, my bad, the Golden Gate Bridge. And we can go to the next slides. So these are just, want to close out with some additional calls to action or ways that y'all can take action. This is the Quit Genocide campaign, which has been demanding that the Biden administration staff resign in protest against Biden's active role in the genocide in Gaza. Right after more than 120 days of Israel's genocidal campaign against Palestinians, Biden officials and staffers need to end their complicity and quit. So there have been public resignation of senior Biden officials like Josh Paul, like Tarek Habash, who have already made waves in Washington. And more rights nations would make a powerful statement against the administration's complicity in this genocide and constitute an important step towards holding the administration accountable for its actions. So this email tool allows you to instantly send an email to over 200 staff members within the Biden administration telling them that they should resign and that they should quit genocide. We can go to the next slide. This is our the Stop Gaza Genocide Toolkit that we share at every one of our power hours. It's regularly updated. It includes links that we've used today to email, send tweets, to call like your elected officials. And it includes a resource on how you can organize your own local phone zaps. We also have, like what I talked about earlier, bird dogging and other types of actions or ideas for actions and disruptions targeting politicians that are supporting Israel and Israel's genocide against the Palestinian people. So this has like resources on how you can pressure your Congress member through bird dogging, BDS stickers and flyers, posters, that wheat pasting guides on posters for printing, additional resources and high visibility action ideas. And we also have linked here the military funding to Israel map, where you can actually look up your city and find out how much of your community's tax dollars are being sent to Israel. So this can be used in, like, you can make posters out of that, use it in public comment at your city council meetings, where if you want to, really show that this is actually a local issue, and that because our tax dollars are being sent to fund this genocide to support Israel's military occupation of Palestine. So again, we have a bunch of resources in this toolkit. It gets regularly updated, and we encourage you all to check it out. And like I mentioned earlier, this is we're about to enter a couple of days of action to shut it down for RAFAH, the 15th to the 17th, starting tomorrow. If you go to shutitdownforpalestine.org, you can find toolkits for different sectors like students, healthcare workers, media workers, business owners, flyer templates, and check out what actions are being organized in your city. Again, the goal is to keep building the pressure and momentum. And so again, you can register your action if you're going to hold one, and we encourage you to hold and organize actions in the coming days. Again, because like we always say on these calls, Israel's genocide is made possible through the unconditional diplomatic, economic, and military support that it enjoys from the US and its allies. So we really encourage you all to join us in organizing rallies and walkouts and other actions in your cities. You can register your action on the website. And again, our demands are that we're really highlighting in the next few days, and that we've been highlighting on this call, is for an arms embargo, right, to stop arming Israel, to reinstate funding for UNRWA, to lift the siege on Gaza, to end the genocide, ceasefire, and ending the occupation, right? And then the last resource we want to highlight here, or second last, is the City Council's toolkit. So this is really helpful if you are organizing in your city council for a ceasefire resolution, or any type of organizing that you're doing at your city council. We've held a couple meetings to strategize around city council organizing, and we have integrated our learnings from different case studies. We heard on previous calls, someone from the Hayward Coalition who organized to pass a divestment resolution in their city, and we've integrated some of the key takeaways from those experiences into this toolkit and have added a few new sections. So right now, what we have in here is strategy questions that you can ask before starting a campaign, types of city council resolutions, a list of resolutions that have been passed in the US, takeaways from case studies, strategy challenges and what you can do about them, sample talking points for navigating opposition, anti-doxing and anti-harassment steps, and a city council resolution template that you can also use to put forward or to try to push for the introduction of a resolution in your city. So this is a toolkit that also has been updated and is going to continue to be updated, and we encourage you all to check this one out. And then the last resource that we encourage people to check out is the Drop the Charges. As you all know, like, there have been multiple protesters and activists who've been arrested at actions, and there's specifically, this is also just an image from the mobilizations to shut it down for Palestine. The past couple of weeks, there was a protest outside the Grammys in LA, and in DC, there was like a major action at multiple locations throughout the city. But we encourage people to check out the Drop the Charges toolkit. This is against dropping the charges against the Bay Bridge 78. So right now, amazing activists in the Bay Area are doing an action at the Golden Gate Bridge in December, the Bay Bridge 78 appeared in court to face charges that the District Attorney Jenkins is pursuing against them for protesting genocide. And more than a couple months later, while the genocide in Palestine continues, these ridiculous and inflated charges have still not been dropped. And we know that the criminalization of our community members is consistent with the increased presence of state repression and actions for Palestine that we're seeing across North America. So we're going to persist in our demand for the liberation of Palestine, of course, and it's up, we are also going to protect each other and support activists who are facing charges for protesting against genocide. So we encourage people to show your support by demanding that the district attorney drop the charges, and you can take action by calling and emailing the DA Jenkins and demand justice for the Bay Bridge 78. I think that is everything that we wanted to cover here today. I just want to see if anyone on Mohammed or anybody else would like to answer any questions or has any other closing comments, and then we can close out and invite you all to attend our next week's Power Hour. All right, thank you all for joining. We'll close out now. Again, appreciate everyone for participating. And if we did not get to your questions, we'll do our best to answer them on the next Power Hour. And hope to see you in the streets this weekend and to make more calls next week. And again, I encourage you all to use these resources throughout the coming days. Thanks, everybody.